All right, let's dive into a story that's a real head-scratcher in the crypto space. It's a tale of two very different fortunes. On one side, you have Ripple, the company, which is just on an absolute tear, expanding globally, winning massive legal battles, and even sparking serious buzz about ETFs and a potential IPO. But then, you've got XRP, the token, and for months, its price has just completely failed to notice any of that incredible success.
So, that really brings us to the core puzzle of this whole explainer, right? How on earth can Ripple, the company, be absolutely crushing it while its native token, XRP, seems to be going, well, nowhere? Can one truly succeed without the other? Okay, let's get into it and try to unravel this great disconnect.
So first up, let's talk about the good news. And for Ripple, the company, there has been a lot of it. We're talking a string of major wins both in the courtroom and in the boardroom.
And these wins are seriously impressive. I mean, that landmark legal victory against the SEC, that provided a ton of regulatory clarity, which is basically gold in this industry. Ripple has also been pushing a huge international expansion, especially in Japan, which is a super important market for cross-border payments. You add in some smart acquisitions, some key alliances, and you've got a company that is just firing on all cylinders. They're even making moves towards the traditional finance world with all this talk of ETFs and a possible IPO.
Okay, but that's only half the story. Now we have to flip the coin and look at XRP's price paradox, because, wow, it could not be more different. So, after hitting its recent highs, XRP's price took a nosedive, dropping by nearly 50%. I mean, that's a stark, brutal number that really tells you pretty much everything you need to know about how it's been performing. And the reasons why are, well, they're complicated. All that amazing news about Ripple, the legal wins, the global expansion, it just didn't translate into any kind of lasting price bump for the token. You know, a big part of the problem seems to be the high concentration of tokens held by just a few large accounts, the whales, which can really put a damper on price action for everyone else. The bottom line is pretty simple. While the company was soaring, the token was just completely stuck in the mud.
And this right here just lays it all out perfectly. It really shows that disconnect. For every single positive on Ripple's side, you've got regulatory clarity, global expansion, growing institutional interest. There's a negative for XRP that just cancels it out. Crazy price volatility, constant supply pressure, and just stagnant market momentum. They're really like two different assets moving in completely opposite directions.
So the big question is, what would it actually take to close this gap? What needs to happen for XRP's performance to finally start looking like Ripple's corporate success story?
So for XRP to really get in sync with Ripple, it seems like three key things need to happen. First, a technical breakout. The price has to smash through those key resistance levels to get the market feeling confident again. Second, you need real institutional investment. And that don't mean just headlines. I mean actual serious cash flowing into things like ETFs. And third, and this one is probably the most important, tangible use. The market has to see massive, direct proof that XRP is absolutely essential for payments and liquidity.
And as if that's not enough, there's another major challenge to think about. Every single month, 1 billion XRP are released from Ripple's escrow account. Now, not all of it gets sold, but it creates this constant potential for selling pressure, this supply overhang that the market always has to factor in.
So here's what it all comes down to. The biggest risk for XRP isn't really technical or even legal anymore. It's a narrative risk. See, a Ripple IPO could be great for the company. But if the broader market feels like XRP isn't strictly necessary for Ripple's business to work, then the token is just going to keep stagnating. Its price ultimately depends on whether its story, the story of its utility, is a convincing one.
Okay, so with all of that on the table, we can start to map out three possible futures for XRP. Let's take a quick look at where this whole thing could be headed.
The bullish path is pretty straightforward. Real institutional adoption kicks in, the ETFs work, and XRP becomes absolutely essential to how Ripple does business. If that happens, its price would finally catch up to the company's success. Then you've got the neutral road, where Ripple keeps growing, but XRP's core utility is still kind of a question mark, leaving the price to just drift sideways. And finally, the bearish scenario. That weak narrative combines with those monthly escrow sales, investors lose interest, and you see some serious downward pressure on the price.
So what's the final verdict here? After looking at both sides of this crazy story, it really all boils down to one single critical word: utility.
And here is the single most important lesson from this whole situation. In the world of crypto, it is just not enough for the company behind a project to do well. A company's success, no matter how amazing it is, does not automatically mean its token is going to be successful too. The token has to prove its own worth, its own utility, and generate real, lasting confidence in the market, all on its own terms.
And that leaves us with the final, defining question. Will XRP finally prove its fundamental utility and actually bridge this great disconnect? Or is it just going to remain a speculative asset, forever living in the shadow of the incredibly successful company that created it? I guess only time will tell.